Hello, it's the 20th of April and I'm going to be planting out a number of different seeds today, but I'm going to be using pretty much the same technique for all of them, a technique that I've called pot in the ground. I think I may have mentioned that before. I'm going to use this frame in a different way this year. You may remember, if you look at this channel, that I used this frame in recent years for the sweet peas. This year I want to change things around a little bit. I found that although the grapes are lovely, I get a huge glut of them at a one-off period later in the year, and I've decided to retire the grapes, and so I'm now using the south-facing frame that used to have grapes on it for growing sweet peas. I also want to scale down to some extent quantities of what I produce to something which is just convenient for myself and my wife. So what I'm going to do is use this frame for four different plants. I'm going to put an outdoor cucumber here. I'm going to put a runner bean. I'm going to put a climbing French bean, and in a couple of weeks' time, because they're a fraction early to plant them, I'm going to also put a butternut squash or two up here and grow those on this frame, and hopefully that will just give small nice quantities for us to have a little taste. We don't need to be self-sufficient, but it's great to see these things grow. So what do I mean by pot in the ground? Well, when this bed was open, I've dug in some bloodfish and bone to condition the soil. Then I've covered with weed suppressant fabric, put the frame up and cut holes at about a foot distance. Probably I'm just find it convenient to have everything I plant at the same distance there, but you might like to check the packet instructions to see what they recommend in terms of spacing for whatever you're actually doing. Then, because this isn't a commercial plot, one can pamper these vegetables quite a lot. I'm going to core out with a bulb planter a section of soil, leaving what is in effect a pot in the ground, and I'm going to backfill that with organic peat-free compost to give the seeds a good beginning. In this area I've thought I've got enough space here for 5 of each of the plants that I've talked about. I'm doing whole star runner beans here, so what I'll do, I'll just make a couple of holes in there, just push my finger in. Again, you might find it helpful to look at the depth instructions on the packets. With these I'm going to put 2 in at every station. That ensures pretty much that one grows. Mostly both will grow. With the runner beans, if both grow, I just let them get on with it. I don't try and separate things out. For the butternut squashes, if I get more than one germination, I will separate them out, or pull out the ones just to leave what the best shoot remaining. And again, with the outdoor cucumbers, I'll only leave 1 in each hole. The climbing French beans, I'll do the same thing that I'm doing here with the runner beans, in that I'll put a couple in at each station, and if both come up, then both can stay up. When I've done this entire bed with, or done the 3 things I'm going to put in today, the cucumbers, the runner beans and the climbing French beans, then I'll obviously give it all a good water. The other thing I want to get started today is the courgette in this bed where I store the compost after it's come out of the bins, and I'm going to use exactly the same technique as I did for those other plants. I think what I'll just do, I'll just put 3 pots in the ground in here, 2 seeds in each, because ultimately here I'm only looking for 1 courgette plant. I'm planting a variety called Midnight, which isn't quite as spectacular in terms of sudden growth of large courgettes as some are, but certainly for myself and my wife, all I actually need is 1 courgette plant. Just backfilling the holes with organic peat-free compost. Once again, do check the depths that you need to plant them. The packet here for these Midnight courgettes says 1¼ centimetres for each of the seeds. There we go. 6 seeds. With these, actually, others, obviously more than one's going to come up. I do tend to dig them out, put them in other pots. The ones I'm not going to keep, and then you give those away to people. Now I'll just water that in. Some of you may be thinking it's a bit early to plant directly out courgettes as seeds. I think that may depend a lot on what part of the country you're in. Here we're in southern England, and clearly it's possible to plant things earlier in southern England than it might be in the north of Scotland. But nevertheless, these are early. But experience said they work okay. But what I will do is just put a cloche over the courgette seeds here, just to give them a little bit more warmth, and if we do get some chilly nights, that'll protect them in their early stages. Okay, well, that's climbing French beans planted, that's runner beans planted, that's cucumbers planted, and that's a courgette planted. And you'll notice that I've done all of those by planting seeds directly into the ground. Even where in the past I've planted in trays or modules or pots, these days if a seed can be germinated directly into the ground, I tend to do that. I love gardening, but I don't have the time to be able to do a lot of additional work which probably doesn't need to be done. If you've got a potting shed and the time, then raising them early may give you an earlier crop, and that's great. But if you pick your time right and you haven't got a potting shed, or you haven't got the facilities to be able to create a lot of seedlings, then don't worry about it, just put them straight into the ground. Nature's good at this sort of thing. I remember years ago I tried to plant some beetroot in modules, and they didn't seem to be growing, and in the end I just tipped them on the garden. A few days later they all started to grow. So there's a lesson there in that part of being a gardener is to not interfere with what Mother Nature wants to do. Even the Mangetout peas this year, you can see I planted directly as seeds on the 11th of March into a trench filled with peat-free compost, and you can see they're coming on pretty well. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching, and I do hope you found something useful or interesting in this video.